What is the true answer between heaven and the underground world? What is limiting others from having this idealistic ability to travel between the two realms, and what limits the people from even entering there before they perish away? An arc that decides the truth, the victor will know what truly is the answer to how to go into heaven, or at least theorize it. Many fights will determine who is right and wrong in this circumstance, and we see as the cleaners face against the raiders. Before I begin, I would appreciate if you guys like and subscribe for more anime, manga, and general fictional content. And with this, I hope y'all enjoy. After Rudo did Amo, at this point they were in town trying to recover their bodies after the big fight against Amo, and we learned why heaven is just completely slimy. At least in this universe, as they're throwing trash to the underground people and they are completely hating it for it. Which honestly, I would too. Imagine like you're just living out your day, and just trash falls down upon you, hits you in the head, and kills you. That's a possibility here. But we do hear why people in the underground world are beginning to dislike heaven at least a little bit more than they did beforehand. With this, we hear something about Rudo's memory being fading on the situation that happened when he first dropped. There must be something in this world, or something that was just telling him to forget, or completely took away his memory of the fall down to the underground world. And then, that's when somebody did something stupid. Some stupid bandits came out here with a rocket launcher, expecting that was enough to defeat the cleaners. Oh boy, were they wrong. Simply walked out with a confident look in her face and just trolled these people, bruh. Rocket launcher back to you. Oh, you're clowning? I'm gonna sit on you. That was it. A whole group of guys defeated by one singular person. The front receptionist. Is that Ores? But of course, these bandits were after Rudo, as he's the sky person, which is why they all came here. It seems about time that someone makes their first move. A new character, a special antagonist. After she quickly defeated these men, they were all seated together, while the owner of the business was just looking at them and engaging of how wicked their eyes are. But one thing I would like to keep of note is how Rudo is the darkest, even though he's someone who's very innocent in nature. Of course, he can be a rabid animal at times, he can be a complete prick. So why are his eyes darker than anyone else's? We hear why Semui does it by herself, and honestly, she's very powerful, and it's not the first time this happened, which means she kind of goes crazy against other people, and nobody's really even come close to damaging the building. The two Jits and the grown men decided to join the group, but more importantly, how did the information of Rudo being a sky person leak so quickly? Who was the person that found out about Rudo and let that information go so that they could get attacked? It was weird because in the cleaners nobody was saying anything, and yet the information was already out. Is there a mole inside the cleaners? While the cleaners were talking, Rudo was by himself before he heard someone talking to him about what the vandals are after. The vandals are thieves, and yet they seem to be desperate and looking for something. Something terrifying was shown here, as we see boots that are very familiar. They are Amo's boots. The girl that we just fought the arc before, she is in danger. Her boots are given to someone else, her precious gift. What happened to Amo? The man put his shoulder on Rudo and said, "I am the leader of the vandals." And Rudo looked pissed. The girl he just beat down and energetically apologized to for everything that he's done, and she apologized to him, is in danger. And it seems that they're enacting their plan. Before they could truly go, the cleaners found Rudo and knew something bad was happening. They all jumped up and went to attack the man. They all teleported away into different spots of a giant battlefield. What is going on? What happened to everyone? The man caught the cleaners, but why? Why are the cleaners so important in this case? It seems to just be Rudo. Rudo told him that something happened to Amo. They all locked in. We see as the cleaners and vandals looked at each other, opponent after opponent, it seems like the true battle will begin this instance. Rudo was more worried about ammo than anything else. He didn't really care about himself at that point. Of course, Enjin, as the true bro that he is, put his hand over Rudo's shoulder and like, hey, he's not by himself, we got the cleaners here. What you think you're gonna do, gang? But this man had other plans, as a giant trash storm came down, tearing them all apart in a 1v1 situation. A 1v1 fight between a member of the Raiders and a member of the Cleaners. And Rudo was just asking where Amo is. The man looks at him and just says, what is that? He wants to take down Heaven and is asking for Rudo to join him. Rudo doesn't care about that. All he wants right now is to help Amo. Even if ultimately he did want revenge on Heaven. He worries more for the friend that has just gone hurt. Zoyle is very clean with words. He knows what Rudo wants to hear. How they two have the same vision in destroying Heaven, and how they're both mad at it. And while Zoyle never seen it, Rudo has, and he's the key to figuring out this whole thing. Of course, Rudo doesn't care for that. He wants to find Amo, his friend that has just gone hurt. It seems like Zoyle won in the end this conversation, as even though Rudo tried to get for Amo, Zoyle continued to push on the point of Heaven, and how the Cleaners will never get into Heaven. He's even questioning the friendship that they had. Was it truly real? Is all this real, or is he imagining how close they are in their heads? We see the other contestants, the other opponents. Rio will fight against Amoso. Enjin looks onto his opponent. And then the specific fight that we all want, the rematch between Jabber and Zanka. They hit each other again and again. Jabber laughing maniacally like he's the Joker or something, while Zanka is having a serious look on his face, just trying to defeat the man in front of him. That is, until Jabber discovers something new. It was on the ground and it was growing as it seems to be some kind of poison, or something acidic at the very least. As when he tried it, he began to burn and he yelled. But then after a couple seconds, he smirked, saying, I got it. Like, yeah, this dude is a masochist. Jabber also got a power-up. His left claw is able to reflect poison against others, which is honestly crazy, because last time he just had to stab them. Now he just can reflect them. And we see this by him reflecting poison onto Zanka. One of Team Child was by themselves. The girls were about to begin. Rio was just terrified of cockroaches, and that's the only bug she's terrified of. While the other girl seems to be more impoverished, more rich, and she looked down upon being scared of cockroaches. Zanka did indeed dodge all of them, which surprised Jabber, but for Enjin's fight, he was just annoying some kid. And then the rest of Team Child is against an old man who looked down on them. Rio versus Amoso is about to begin. First who swung was Rio, as Amoso dodged the attack, and the two were beginning their clash as well. It took just 2 strikes for Amoso to figure out what Rio's abilities are with her scissors, and how they work directly. Though that doesn't really matter, as Rio was just like, Zanka and Jabber. Zanka knew Jabber wasn't dead. He knew he wasn't knocked out. He knew! He was like, hey. And so Jabber walked out the pummels and looked at him with a smile as he said, I can finally show my real self. Now the true battle will begin for Zanka. Zanka, though, seemed to be a little bit petrified for the fight that they will concede it. He was shocked that the Jabber they fought earlier was not his best.
That don't work. There's no way out of this one. You're done.
Rio was in the ground, shockingly, as Amoso talked down to her already. We learn to why this is, as Rio was hurt by her hair. From the two of them boxing, we move on to the baby team again, and they were conversating with the old man. What he wants is to learn about the boss. That's it. Now they're on a time crunch. The boss is about to go in there and find them, but he needs to just get time. This is like Prison Island and SA2, man. You just gotta get out of there. Make sure you're alright. Though the questionnaire of the boss begins, and yet, since they don't really know the boss in general, but that information was all they needed to know before Bundas explained that the Vandals have been able to make aberrant beasts now. This is very powerful because no one has been able to do this in the past at all. The end is clear. Zanka is nowhere near as strong as Jabber. And then we see Zoyle do his best Bobbity impression. Like, this dude was in Rudo's head completely. Calling how heaven is trash for what they do. They just throw down these trash in order for people to subsidize within themselves and be able to live within society. He was very correct. He hit every nail in the coffin. He knew exactly what to say, exactly what to do in order to get in Rudo's head. Him and Rudo have something similar, and that's their eyes. The viewings of society and what is deemed as normal and what is deemed as shocking is something that is differentiated by the people of that world. Even right now, Zoyle is testing. He's testing Zanka versus Jabber, as he wants to see if Zanka will awaken just like Rudo did, and if he doesn't, Zanka's demise will be evident. A poison genius versus a normal genius. Who will win this decisive battle? The battle was one that wasn't easily decipherable, as the two were dodging each other and fighting each other. They seemed pretty evenly matched, even with Jabber's awakening. Though Zanka has been defensive because he's been trying to read what Jabber's ability truly is. That boy Jabber said let her rip and just began it. Bro looking like Jedi. Bro looking like Pegasus to many. But the more the fight went on, the more we are learning about the genius. The more he's losing himself and is becoming more in the will of the fight and just letting himself go. The irony of the first hit not being from his claws, but from a kick to the gut. But as the king goes down, that is checkmate. Or so, that's what Jabber thought, as Zanka began to do the Goku technique. Making sure that claw doesn't stab him, of course, but either way, he used it pretty well. Zanka is looking up to someone. He wants to prove that he's also special, just like the someone ahead of him. And the irony again, instead of Jabber getting the first stab, it was Zanka, as he pierced his weapon right in Jabber, sending him flying. Zanka's ordinary. He wants to view himself as a genius because he wants to be like every genius around him. He's fighting for the next level. He wants to prove everyone wrong, and that's what makes him special. Not that he was born as a special someone, a special genius, but because a normal man like him, an ordinary man like him, is able to fight this way. But because of that move, he left himself wide open. Jabber knew this was over. The thing he touched earlier, the thing that burnt him, almost made Zanka lose his complete foot. You can see the bone in his leg. Now this is when we get Zanka's backstory. I'm going to simplify it a little bit so it doesn't take that much runtime on the video, but it is very important to his character. You see, he was someone that was always viewed as a genius. He was someone that was always on top, that was always smart, even though the reason for this is because he studied very hard in the back, not because of his overall talent from the get-go. He always lived a fake genius life, a fake talented life without realizing it. A true genius came upon him. Zanka had never lost until this first instance. His first loss ever to someone that's actually real. Someone that is real talented and someone who's actually special. But in reality, his goal was fake. His sister's hard work was fake. And him acting above everyone else was fake. He hates fakes the most, and so he wants to differentiate himself in comparison to every other person that's fake. He chose a staff, one that's not an ordinary weapon. He believed Hio was the same way, that she would pick a weapon that nobody would use and defeat everyone else. But even geniuses just choose the right weapons and don't overcomplicate things, as she chose a katana. He was in a hole defeated. He yelled out, he proclaimed that he will win, but it was already over. Remember when we said Jabber's abilities be high? Yeah, Zanka was high. Jabber was laughing because he believed he won. This is it. He's like,
come on, man, that's too easy.
Jabber started acting like Vince Williams after D-Hop missed the catch, bruh. Fantasia finally escaped. After all, she was alone, and she's a part of Team Child. And she sees a core with a lot of grotesque things like hands and knives, which makes me wonder: are these aberrant beasts made by people, like their insides? If so, it does make a negative connotations to what the Vandals are doing. Jabber celebrated by jumping, and before we know it, Engine recognized this noise as if something he's heard in the past. Something very familiar to someone he knows directly. We did see though throughout the fight between Ryo and Amoso is that the two were pretty evenly faced in this department, but Ryo always had the disadvantage in this fight. And once she came coming down, she was sent flying as she was hit straight in the gut. The reason Amoso is such a powerful fighter is not only has she been doing Latin dances and so she's able to move very quickly, but her hair is connected to her nervous system. She's also a part of the warrior race named Cerealia, which means she has to be a competent fighter. But Ryo decided to do something unprecedented and let go of her weapon in order to fight Amoso in a 1v1 fisticuffs. Martial arts wins all. But with their techniques being evenly, the power difference was vast, as Ryo in general had greater physical power than Amoso did, knocking her feet away and hitting her straight in the dome. They both hit each other, and yet Amoso was the only one bleeding from it. But once she lets go of her electricity hair, that's when Ryo uses her scissors again to come down and slash on him. And the rest of this chapter was just basically the two of them fighting evenly until they were both huffing and puffing. But then Ryo was just like, I'm tired of it. This might be troublesome at this point, folks, because Ryo just... Engine strictly banned her from killing people. She might be hurt for real. She might got Oraz. The reason she fights the way she does is because she truly cares for her friends in the cleaners. This was the first time she was able to experience connection and growth with other people. That is why she doesn't kill anymore, because she promised someone close to her that she wasn't gonna kill. And the reason she's fighting so hard and the reason she put out the gun is because she's worried about Rudo and she's worried about Amo. She picked up Zanka and left after that. Rudo versus Zoyle and his partner. It is time to go. It's over. The cleaners are winning too much and they need to get out of there. They're gonna force Rudo with them. They were arguing over going with one another. And without Rudo answering, he started putting words in his mouth like, you will join me. I asked you already. And he didn't give all the details, so why would Rudo join him? Zoyle looked alone as he put Amo's boots on a giant middle section, which is the core of the aberrant beast. I'm going to go in detail about this because it seems to be very important. The Watchmen series, it is something very important to the series, and we see as there is 3 at the moment right now: Rudo's gloves, Zoyle's jacket, and Amo's boots, which means there is more than one. And how many are in a set? They are stronger than any other Jinki that we've seen and Jinki that we are going to see in the future. The power is unfathomable. Something so powerful is given to someone that is in the overworld, in heaven. So that begs the question, how did Rekko have these in the first place? To own a Watchmen series and fully unlock its powers and be sane is something that is rare, as Zoyle even says himself that he is not sane by this sentence, as he's unlocked the abilities, but he is agreeing to himself that he is not the way he should be. Having all of them together are supposed to be worn by one person, and that's what Zoyle wants. He has happened to them with the Watchmen series. Amo's husband, the way he treated her, that is why she was not sane and early on in the series. Zoyle right now is not sane for the things that has happened to him, and Rudo, even with everything he's gone through, is still sane. Something within him is different than everyone else in order for him to be able to hold on to this power but still be himself. We see as everyone is figuring out that they are inside an aberrant beast. That is why they all stood up and all proclaimed that they will clean up this aberrant beast this chapter. It was exciting to have a situation like this happen as they never been inside an aberrant beast before. They are all heading to the core and the Santa brothers.
Smash.
Jinky. But before they could escape, they have to fight Bundas. They were about to fight until instead of fighting each other as they were in the car and falling tunnels, and right when they got there, guess who showed up? They were all catching up on what happened, but even with the dangers of the situation they're in, Injin was happy for Rudo. They finally connect to the cleaners again, and now they can communicate with each other once more. The mission is at a go. They have to get out of there, as they explain that if they meet the border, they will all die. This is when we get one of the more impactful moments from Injin, a moment that shows that he is truly the leader of the group. He will act as a symbol and bring everyone together. Alright, the missions are at a go, and now the supporters are heading down there to help them escape. The reason they're able to go so high is because the trash storm is arriving. Rudo then had a very impactful speech. They don't know me. We're not related. I'm like a piece of trash with nothing going for him but rage. But they gave me a home. Me, a spear right, who keeps dragging them into my troubles. But they didn't treat me like a burden. They treated me like me, on the spear on the ground. The cleaners are the only ones, all other than Rekko, who saw me for me. I'll never forget about my goal for revenge or my rage. But you know, that's not enough for me anymore. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, I want all of us alive having fun. I want to get my revenge while living my best life. Turds for brains. This is a very impactful line as we see Rudo develop into his own character here and not be just someone who's out for revenge, but someone who wants to have a brighter future. Zoyle was very pissed as he started yelling at Rudo, and the two would seem to have this battle. Zoyle is not someone that is friendly. He doesn't have friends. Worse, Injin came out of nowhere. Everyone arrived at the same time. This is the end game. Then they all attacked the core. Started with Rudo, but before they could get anything off, Bundas came in front of it and blocked it all. It seems like they all have to defeat Bundas in time in order for them to grab the core and destroy it. Rudo did his best King Von impression and shot his nail gun. But it seems Amoso was also getting up. Bundas was capped. He's not no rookie. He is a veteran. It was getting frustrating. They weren't getting close to it at all. Bundas was overly confident. That was until Rudo decided to finally awaken into something even greater. He could be stronger, and so his nail gun evolves into a giant gun. Bundas is shocked as the gun evolved into a cannon. The reason why Rudo is able to do this is because of the 3 limit thing he has earlier where he can use 3 different weapons. You see, if he concentrates it on one weapon, that weapon will evolve even more than what it would be if it was just 1v1, or him using 3 weapons while he's fighting against one person with 1. That is why this happened. With this awakened cannon, he shot the first time. Bundas barely survived it, and then afterwards, he let his hand up and shot another one, breaking through Bundas' defense. Rudo just defeated Bundas on his own. Even though Rudo just defeated Bundas, the time limit has reached, as the aberrant beast is now going to head to the border. It's not like Rudo could even do much, as after the second shot he was already tired and on the ground. But by this point, the Vandals were trying to escape, as if they stayed any longer, they would also perish. And so, because Amoso is just crashing and just wants to fight Ryo, he is letting her die. Amoso knows her role. She's a pawn in the scheme for Zoyle to achieve his ultimate dream. The Vandals are just going to escape, letting everyone else die while they achieve their goals and going into heaven and destroying it. Even though in the end, Zoyle knows that they were going to live. Amoso let out all the power she had, exploding into a fit of rage, hitting every single one of the cleaners with electricity. And so, Amoso was just shocking everyone and making sure that they leave, that everyone dies, that they reach the border and everyone passes away. She was using all her power, but even with all her power, the cleaners were still able to move. Ryo, Engine, and Rudo showed that they were the strongest there at the time, as they were able to move and escape out of there by punching the core, though with this damage left a giant hole. Amoso had no escape, as she fell from within the aberrant beast. Flying through the air, alone, Amoso was just thinking about the past, and what made her join the Vandals is the compliment Zoyle gave to her hair. The beauty of what they were working for. The reason why the border is hard to get past. It's the Watchmen. With that, she died. Amoso is dead. The cleaners needed an escape route at this point. They were desperate and they needed to figure out how to get out of there. And so Fantasia decided to awaken into her beast monster form and help them be able to land down, as all they had to do was destroy the ground under them before they had to land down on the ground and escape from the tragedy. Nobody in the cleaners died. Everyone was okay. Mission was complete. Once everyone was safe, once everyone realized that everybody was okay, they had landed on the ground, they began to talk about everything that had happened and how they were all glad that they were all okay. They wanted to curse the Raiders for doing this to them, but in the end, they were all okay, so it didn't really matter as much. They did hear, though, that they were worried about the Watchmen series, and that is very important here. And the fact Fantasia was the one that caught it, well, it's very important to her character, as this is her first impactful moment. Fantasia was the one that figured out the name, as well as Rudo, so now there is something that they know that the Vandals are looking for. The experiment was a success, even with the death of Amoso. Bandits was rewarded, and so the Vandals took their own win in this case. They learned that the chokers are made by a giver as well, which is something that they needed to find if it was true. Because if it was true, then he is closer to finding out his experiments and becoming true. Both Rudo and the Vandals have the same goal, going to heaven and destroying it. But one has close people that he finds friends, and the other one is filled with despair in his heart. That is how the trash storm arc ends. A lot of fighting, a lot of character development with Rudo, especially as he has become even more complex. Yes, he hates the people in heaven, but guess what? He's able to evolve himself so much that he cares more about the people he met now than whatever pain they gave him in the past. We also learn about the Watchmen series and why they're so important, as the Watchmen series holds significant bearing to the world, and that they were the reason that a lot of Rudo's terrible thing that happened to him. But where is Amo? How will they save her? And what will happen next with these characters that we are beginning to adore and care about? Learning so much about characters like Ryo, as she's an assassin, and other things. But that's the trash storm arc, completely explained.